Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Out of the Blue, the Friday afternoon coffee break chat brought to you by the team at Blue Apple Education. Today's episode is a slight deviation away from our traditional topics of school marketing and communications and focuses on school income generation. I know this is a topic that's really important to lots of you. It's becoming even more important following the effects on school funding of COVID. We're delighted to be able to introduce you today to Justin Smith from Chameleon Training and Consultancy, who's going to talk about his specialist school income generation and bid writing services. I'm sure you're going to get a lot from what Justin has to say. Join me at the end where I'll provide you with more information and details of how you can get in contact with Justin if you'd like some more information and some further help from him. In the meantime, sit back, grab your coffee and enjoy the chat. I'll see you later. So Justin, welcome to our coffee break chat. Important questions first. What's in your brew?
This is just a cafe au lait, actually, Mark. A traditional, standard.
Posh cup, though.
Well, of course. What would you expect? I'm not having some sort of striped mug, am I? I'm going to have my only disappointment is that this is not branded. And I know I've let the site down slightly, but it's a nice coffee. Yeah.
We should consider branded mug, shouldn't we?
Cafe con leche, I think I'd like to call it, if that's okay.
Well,
Cafe con leche.
Yes, we'd expect nothing less, David.
So today I brought my
Clarence Cliff something.
No, Barcelona, and I forget the architect, designer.
Gaudi.
Yeah, Gaudi. Thank you. Yes, Gaudi.
Sagrada Familia.
It's his cup, yeah. And I've got a Firenze Arpeggio Espresso in there today. I'll let you know what it's like.
Okay,
that's good.
Well, builder's tea.
Smooth. A little bitter on the palate. Definitely hint of hazelnut in there.
I
tell you, we are very jealous. That sounds really nice, actually.
Yeah, but it's like having a conversation with Delia Smith, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Anyway, now we've got the important things over. Justin, you were good enough to forward us on a school photograph. As you know, every guest that we have that comes on to Out of the Blue, we ask them for a school photograph. I think what's interesting is apparently your mum provided 5 and you still chose this one to send over to us. It's pretty brave.
Yeah, well, you should have seen the other 4. And it is embarrassing. Of course it is. The thing is, I'll be absolutely honest, guys, I looked like that until I was about 25. Same haircut. Same jumper, probably. So I didn't really change, and it is embarrassing. So, yeah, thanks, Mum.
So
Mrs. Smith, thank you for that.
Did your mum keep the same bowl to trim?
Yeah. And as my head got bigger, the haircut just looked even more odd as the years went by.
So, Justin, on to the topic in hand and the reason why we invited you on today. And obviously, we first came across each other. I certainly first met you when we were both presenting at an event. And I think what struck me at the time when you were presenting was just the massive array and different ways that schools can actually look at fundraising and get a handle on fundraising. So, first question really, and the thing that occurred to me when we first met is what's the first thing that you get asked to help with? Where do they start with all of that?
That's a really good question, Mark. To be honest, most schools don't really know where to begin. You know, where do you start? You'll have a wish list of things that you'd love to improve within the school, and it could be anything from developing outdoor play areas or refurbishing your library or key stage areas or paying for extracurricular activities or trips, anything, quite frankly, that's beyond the normal core costs of running the school, most of which, of course, goes on staffing. So, they'll have a wish list, and the first question often is, we don't really know where to begin. And And I sort of go back to when I first started working in schools about 20 years ago. And that was the first issue that I faced. Part of my role was to raise funds for the school and pay for all the great stuff that we wanted to do but couldn't afford to do. And where to begin? Well, fast forward 20 years and have developed ways of doing that. I called it the roadmap for the sake of trying to come up with something a little bit more original, but that's what I've branded it as. But effectively, we look at the context that the school operates in at the time. So every school is different, of course, in different environments. So we look at the context the school is in, look at the capacity that the school has to raise funds themselves, look at some of the capabilities they may have in-house to do that, look at the projects specifically, the initiatives that they're looking to achieve. And then I begin to break it down. We do a SWOT analysis and we begin to break it down into, okay, which initiatives can be funded through grants, which are best funded through crowdfunding or donations. Are we exploiting gift aid properly, which can be a massive asset to the school? Looking at other aspects such as, maximizing the lettings potential. Are you working with local businesses for sponsorship, for example? And if you think very much about suppliers with the schools, schools have got transactional relationships with suppliers already, so should certainly have those conversations. So there's a whole array, and I call it the Wheel of Fortune, where I look at all of the ways that schools can fundraise. There's passive income as well. So every school is different, and depending on your own context and circumstance, then we can pull together the roadmap, and it's almost like a step-by-step guide to fundraising those original projects. And it's a great starting point because it's almost like a stake in the ground. It's from there you can then begin to develop your fundraising plan. I learned that the hard way, I guess, in my first school, because I didn't know where to begin. My first post had to be self-funded within 18 months. And I found that out at the job interview, just as I was shaking hands and accepting the post, which was interesting. That was fine. And I learned then all the different techniques of exploiting grants and donations and encouraging people to support what we want to do in the school.
So I suppose there's a motivation from some schools that have a specific target in mind or something that they're particularly trying to raise funds for.
Yeah.
But is it ever the case that you're kind of educating the school that fundraising is, or the trust, obviously, that fundraising is possible and it's not actually something that they've even considered?
Yes, very much so. Often I'll talk to colleagues all over the place, actually in various schools of different sizes, about what projects specifically they're looking to achieve and fundraise for. And in many cases, responsible, particularly the primary schools where they have limited capacity, they've got limited space and resource and time and people to do this stuff. And it's like, well, a pipe dream is to do this. We'd love to do this, but there's no way we can do that. And there are so many great stories, inspirational stories of schools that are achieving fantastic results. Crowdfunding £4,000, £5,000, £6,000, £10,000 in a month for a project, just because they've got the narrative right and they're telling the story properly and they're explaining the impact and the difference that people can make when they get involved. And when you can do that, we work in an emotive industry, don't we? We're working with children. We can show the difference that we have on their lives and their experiences. So often it's about motivation. It's about self-belief. Starting small, that snowball effect, developing something that's achievable and delivering it and getting everybody motivated and behind you. Often that is a case of just encouraging people to believe that they can achieve. And there are so many great stories of schools achieving that in all sorts of sizes and capacities. Yeah. So that's not a difficult story to tell, actually, once you can demonstrate that it's possible.
Do you ever find... Sorry, Mark. Do you ever find that there's some reluctance from the schools once you've started that and you've put those steps in place? Are there any barriers that come up? Anything that where they feel they just can't do it? Is there something common that you come across?
Often I say begin internally. So begin with your own staff and your own children. They are the best ambassadors in terms of promoting the school, of course, from a marketing perspective, but also in terms of sort of fundraising and generating income and encouraging people to get behind what you're doing. So, the first thing to do really is understand what you need and why, prioritize that. Then you can determine precisely how to fund those specific initiatives. and put them in some sort of order. And that's where your plan can come in. And again, I provide all of this to schools anyway. I can provide templates and things. So that's not difficult to do. But begin with that message internally. So if you can encourage, the barriers come down when you build that momentum and you've got staff behind you and you've got the pupils behind you. And ask for volunteers. On many occasions, I've been in staff rooms where I've asked for people to get behind and support me and my team with what we're doing, and hands will go up. And, people don't automatically go into education straight from school. People don't always become teachers straight from school or from, qualifying. So many have experiences of life outside. They've come in from other sectors, other industries, and you never know. And suddenly volunteers' hands are going up. And, actually, I remember an instance in a school I worked in, and somebody volunteered to help me set up a little fundraising committee at the school, secondary school. And she'd had a prominent role in a cancer charity many years before becoming, going into education. So she had loads of fundraising expertise and experience and contacts. Yeah. So again, barriers come down when you reach out to people, ask for help, explain why. That's the important thing. It's a much easier process when people are on board.
And you've got them on board.
Interesting that link hadn't been made, that she was in the school and she had that experience, but it kind of took you and developing that whole idea to bring.
Well, it's an important lesson for me, Mark, really, to ask. The biggest mistake I made at the beginning was try to do everything myself, thinking I knew it all. And of course I didn't, and I still don't. Sharing these ideas, motivating, working with others, sharing what other schools are achieving and how they're delivering it. We all continually learn. And I learned very much the hard way early on I wrote a fundraising and a marketing plan for the first school I worked in. And I didn't really share it much beyond the leadership team. I was on the leadership team, and the biggest mistake was doing that. I needed to involve everybody and explain what we were trying to do. And I was herring about trying to do it on my own. And of course, that's just not sustainable. So ask, get people involved. See, if you can demonstrate why you're doing things and the impact it will have, then generally speaking, people will want to help you.
Very true. Justin, I was chatting with a large secondary school yesterday, actually. And although obviously we're all aware of the impact that COVID and the lockdowns and everything has had on the fundraising in schools, some of the figures that they were talking to me about yesterday were eye-watering. And it's a combination of the additional costs that all of the social distancing and all of that has had on the school, but also just the lack of income that they've had from their commercial side.
Yeah.
So he estimated, and it's a single secondary school, he estimated the impact on their school funds will have been about £250,000, £250,000.
That's a lot of money.
Which is frightening. Are there sort of lessons that you've learned from people that you're talking to through COVID, and what can they take from that? Where can they look to start to make amends to that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an important fact, because many schools fundraise through two avenues: events and grants. And if you're relying entirely on hosting events, which through your PTA or your friends associations, I think there was some research carried out at the start of the first lockdown back in sort of March, April of last year, carried out by the University of Chester, that found that 50% of charities, relied very much on events to generate their income. Now, if you imagine PTAs and friends associations in schools, again, they're generating their funds generally through events throughout the year. Now, that's ground to a halt over the last 12 months. We've not been able to host anything. So there's no income coming from there. All the major grant funders, people like the National Lottery and Sport England, for example, quite rightly, they've
Thank you for watching our video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and leave a comment below.
And they're focusing on
ring the
smaller
bell for
scale,
notifications.
localised,
I hope I will see you again
initiatives,
soon.
which is quite understandable and absolutely right. But that's not going to fund your Muga or your outdoor gym. Or your library refurbishment, probably. So again, if you're reliant on grants, you're reliant on events for income, that's not going to work out. So we've always said, and we go back to what I mentioned earlier about the Wheel of Fortune, where we're looking at that holistic, rounded approach to income generation, where you're looking at donations and gift aid and sponsorship and passive income and the whole array. then you're far more, if you've got income coming in from these different streams, you're far more resilient to external influences such as something like a pandemic. The other lesson, of course, is to digitize your fundraising. Websites are going to be the primary platform, as you guys know, for schools to communicate. So why would you not use that medium to promote the projects that you're developing in school? If people can't physically come to you on site, they can certainly click on a keyboard and they can donate, they can find out more about a project, they can support you in different ways. So again, the ability of schools to maximize their digital relationship with people on the outside is really important. And so, some, of course, have been found, wanting in that regard, being able to have a website that's agile and able to respond quickly to what you want it to do. So digitize your fundraising, think how your website can help you and your social media, and look at, there are 8 or 9 different ways that schools can fundraise. Don't focus on events and grants only, because you're going to get caught short, I guess.
Yeah, and it's not surprising, because there are very large corporations in the world that have been caught out by the impact of COVID and not been agile enough to change for that. So it's hardly surprising we find schools in that similar situation, really.
That's right. And also, actually, to just consider, if you're a grant funder, if you are the lottery or whoever, and you get an application from a school and it's clear that they are engaging with their community, and this is a project where lots of people are engaged, involved, and have listened to everybody, and they've developed this particular project that takes on board everybody's views, and there's a partnership, collaborations, and you get all of that with your other fundraising avenues. Okay, so if you can demonstrate that to a grant funder, that you've got donations coming in from business and parents, actually, that's the sort of project that a funder wants to support. Because, well, for lots of obvious reasons, they don't want to fund necessarily 100% of the project. They want to fund a smaller percentage, of course, naturally. And if they can see that you've engaged with the outside world in an effective way, then that's more likely to carry weight for those grant funders too.
So I know that you've secured now over £7 million for schools.
Yeah, we've just over 7 now.
Yeah, which is amazing. It's a fantastic achievement, I think, to help schools in that way. What's next for Chameleon? What are your plans for the years ahead?
That's a good question. I guess for me, the thing that I enjoy more than anything with the work that I've been doing with schools is training, and I'd really enjoy training. Obviously, that's not face-to-face at the moment. That's running lots of webinars and seminars and lots of new masterclasses that have been developed specifically to be delivered this way. I really enjoy that because for me, it's about building the capacity within schools themselves so they can do the things that I'm talking about with the roadmap and my masterclasses and bid writing and all those services that I provide to schools. If the school itself and the trust can develop that capacity and capability in-house, then of course they're going to, far more likely to be effective going forward. So training is an important part of what I do, and I want to develop that further. We've got lots of quite interesting new classes coming out to support that. And also investing in my own CPD, which is an ongoing process as well, but also partnerships. I mean, like working with you guys and others, finding those that are incredibly good at what they do within the industry and having those relationships and connections is important to me too. So developing further those partnerships as well. But I suppose that the training side and encouraging the capacity in-house for trusts and schools is an important part for me. And that's something I'll be developing further over the coming years.
Yeah, and it must feel very satisfying knowing that once a school has come on board or a trust has come on board and you're able to, they work to your roadmap and you can start seeing that results, the results starting to happen, and the funding,
it's great.
It's a real lifeline for them as well, isn't it?
The biggest, to be honest, I mean, we talked about the 7 million. The biggest kick I get, to be honest with you, is delivering a training session or a series of sessions or supporting a school and their team over a period of time, and then having less contact as they need me less frequently, and I'm at a distance where they can get in touch and just ask questions as and when they need to. But the most positive thing I get back is when I hear of their successes, indirectly often. And I had a case not too long ago where I was talking to a regional business management group, and they asked if I would write a piece for their newsletter, because one of their team or one of their schools had just had some success with some grants, I think £25,000, on the back of a training session that I'd run a year ago. Now, I wouldn't have known about that success. I often hear third hand. And that for me is incredibly encouraging. That's what really drives me on. I can't support everybody, but if I can enable people to deliver that or to increase that capacity and capability themselves in-house, then that's far more sustainable over the long term.
Yeah. And I think that's what we've always liked in your approach, Justin, and the sort of synergy between Chameleon and Blue Apple Education is that just that commitment to helping schools to become self-sufficient in what they do. It's something that we've always believed in from a marketing point of view as well, is it's not just delivering a product for a school, but it's making sure that the school has an understanding of how that product can work for them and what it's designed to achieve, and that it gains its own life once it's been delivered, and it should be fitting in with that whole development within the school.
I absolutely. I mean, I've been on so many. I worked in 3 secondary schools, and I love going on training courses. So I used to just anything that came my way, I would say, yeah, I'll do that. Be great, and I loved it. And I loved developing my own CPD. But the most frustrating thing was being enthused and motivated during the 2 hours day course, whatever it might be, going and lots of notes, lots of plans, going back into school. And of course, 1,000 emails, knocks on the door, the office door, constantly being interrupted. There's no way I can introduce the things that I've been learning in the day before. It goes in a drawer with everything else, and you've become immediately deflated. So what I've built into my courses is that there's always an element of that self-reflection and self-work within that time. So they have an opportunity to actually do and put into place the things we're talking about. And a brand new masterclass that I just launched last month for income generation for schools. It's a 3-part module. But it has a 12 months worth of support afterwards. So the delegate has the 3 modules. They go back into school, they introduce some of the work we're talking about, but there's a 12-month support package with it. So if you get stuck a couple of months in, you haven't got to fudge around in the drawer to find your scribbled notes, 2 months ago. We're here to support. And I'm working in partnership with 1 or 2 other organizations to help deliver that. So I'm really pleased. It's taken almost a year to pull together, but I'm really pleased with that new masterclass, because I think it's important, to have that ongoing support. As you said, Mark, it's great delivering some training, but what's next? Because there's so many questions that crop up when you're back into school that you haven't had answered by the trainer the day before. So it's really important to have that follow up and that support going forwards.
How can schools or trusts find out more about that course, Justin?
Oh, it's all on it's on the website. Obviously email me or call me, but it's all on the website. It's the new income generation masterclass. But it's on the website. Yeah.
So we'll put your details up on the screen as well, so cool. People can contact you that way and find out a bit more about it. But it's fantastic. There's Mark and I talk about it a lot, that there's many companies who still provide the product, hand it over, and then walk away. And I think the lack of support is it's a really difficult position for schools. Like you say, they just take it, put it in a drawer, forget about it, because day-to-day life takes over, and having that ongoing support that will really make a difference, or it does make a difference to what you deliver. I think it's essential, really.
The biggest hurdle, the biggest barrier, the biggest challenge most of the people that we talk to in school, the business manager or school business leaders, whoever they may be, or head teachers even, is time. That's the biggest challenge. There are things we want to do, but we don't have the capacity. Schools don't carry excess staff. They don't have dozens of people waiting to deliver these projects. So it's about making it as easy as possible. So templates, resources, support, step by step. Don't need to reinvent the wheel. I did that 20 years ago. So you don't need to try and do this stuff. It's all here. You can have it. So I think that is incredibly important. Otherwise, these things fail, not through lack of desire and motivation, but just sheer lack of numbers and the capacity to do it, which is a dreadful shame.
Well, Justin, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you coming on and joining us for our usual Friday coffee break.
That's been great. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's lovely to see you both and have a chance to have a coffee with you.
No problem. I think the information you've given is going to be really useful for schools. And obviously, we'll be meeting again at our event in April. And again, we'll put all the details of the event up at the end on the screen for people that'd like to join us. But that's a special event where we're looking at all the different areas and aspects of fundraising for school. And you can hear Justin speak for a little bit longer about some of the points that he's raised today. Justin, thanks so much for your time. I hope you've enjoyed it, and you'll come on again if we invite you on again in the future.
Well, I'm sure you've got a list of guests that you want to invite. But thank you, I've really enjoyed it. Thanks, David. Thanks, Mark. That's been great to see you. And thanks for the invitation.
No problem. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you again.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back. We certainly covered a lot of ground there in our conversation with Justin Smith from Chameleon Training and Consultancy. If Justin has sparked your interest, if you think you'd like to find out a bit more about his specialist services in income generation and bid writing, then please don't hesitate to get in contact with Justin, and all of his details will be on screen at the end. Remember, we run our regular school branding and identity masterclass. It runs once a month. It's a great start for anybody that's looking to get a handle on their school marketing and communications. Again, all of our contact details will be on screen at the end. Please feel free to get in touch with us and we'll talk to you all about the next event. If you like what you saw today, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already to make sure that you don't miss out on any future episodes. And if you know of any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from these conversations, then please do let them know where we are. Next week, we're going to have another special guest. The team from Dark Horse will be joining us to talk about search engine optimization, or effectively how you can make sure that your school website is seen by as many people as possible on Google search engines. Until then, stay remarkable. We'll see you again. Goodbye.
Thank you for watching Out of the Blue, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and leave a comment below, and please ring the bell for notifications. I hope I will see you again soon. Bye!